Wigfield. I work at Microsoft, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about my background and how I got to where I am at Microsoft, a little bit about the Internet of Things, or IoT, and if we have time, just a little bit about what it's like to work at Microsoft. So I've been at Microsoft about 12 years. Um, I've always had a background in sales and marketing in the technology and telecom sector. So always working with large companies, selling technology solutions into large corporates. Much of my career has been working on a global and EMEA, so European basis. I took French at school and at university, so I really enjoy that sort of cultural difference and mix that the role brings when you work on a global basis. So I spend my days in my role at the moment um, talking to Norwegians and Italians and Germans and French, plus Americans, of course, because Microsoft is an American company. So I am a sales specialist for IoT at Microsoft. So exactly what does that mean? So I work with large organizations, large um, manufacturers, utilities, energy providers, transport companies, trying to make their processes and their products more efficient, more sustainable, um, driving insights into maybe some industrial process, understanding how they work and making them more efficient. And that's the fundamentals of what the Internet of Things mean. When we start looking at the Internet of Things from a consumer perspective, that might be if you have an Alexa at home. That's a connected device. That's an IoT device in the home. If you have a Fitbit or a sports watch or something like that that is registering data information from you in terms of heartbeat and other metrics on your run, for example, that can be classed as an IoT device. Where the Alexa, for example, is going in the home is all around smart home technology, and so that can be classed as an IoT environment. Where I work in Microsoft is more on the industrial side, or more on the corporate side. So where we might look at smart home scenarios, we look at smart buildings, office buildings, for example, and production plants and warehousing. So some of my scenarios, for example, on the IoT side, I'm working with a large ferry boat manufacturer, ship manufacturer, working towards autonomous shipping, for example, where we need a ton of data coming off various aspects of that ship in terms of navigation, in terms of speed, location of other boats, weather systems, for example. So where Microsoft really gets involved is the interpretation, the ingesting of that data from those ships, and really trying to make sense of that data. And I believe other talks that you've got from Microsoft are around big data and AI. And so this data coming from ships and vessels, could be cargo ships transporting goods around the world, or it could be cruise ships, for example, with people on. Where does that data go, and how do we make sense of it? And that's where artificial intelligence and big data come in, that you'll be hearing about later. So the conversations that I have with my customers in the manufacturing sector, in the energy sector, in shipping as well, really go towards some of the big challenges that we've got around the world at the moment. So climate change, for example, working with energy companies and utilities, really understanding the state of their infrastructure today. If we are to understand where companies can improve their sustainability metrics, their impact on climate, we really have to understand what their facilities are doing today. And so getting that data from an Internet of Thing environment, from little sensors, little digital sensors inside a wind farm, for example, or an energy plant or a manufacturing process, bringing that data out, interpreting it in large computing cloud environments that Microsoft own, really allows manufacturers and energy providers to understand the condition of their environments today. And then the whole reason why we do that is to try and then improve efficiency, um, environmental metrics, for example. So a real life case at the moment is working with a UK utility on a wind farm. They are building a wind farm up in Scotland, where we are trying to understand, we've got sensors inside those wind turbines, really understanding the condition of those turbines, the condition monitoring of those turbines. So we can put sensors in that hardware, in that turbine, to really understand what the motor is doing, what the gearing is doing, what the ball bearings are doing inside of that turbine, and understanding how that turbine will perform. Equally, we can understand what that entire wind farm is doing, so a multiple number of turbines. We can start understanding the whole unit of that farm as well, and overlaying other data into the condition monitoring of those turbines. So we can input weather data, for example. We can input how the engineer from that utility company is going to service those turbines, and what sort of timescales that engineer will need to have, for example. So it's not just about the devices that the company own. It's also about third-party information and data that influence the condition of their devices, of their processes. So, for example, going back to the shipping company, it was weather systems in there, it was other ships around them, it was sea conditions, for example. For a turbine utility, it's weather systems again as well. It's the influence of people in that wind farm. When we look at manufacturers, for example, I'm working with a large manufacturer that makes soap. Soap takes a huge amount of water in that manufacturing process, for example. So how do we manage the water resource as part of that manufacturing process as best we can, and how can we reuse that water in other aspects, other parts of the factory? And so we've really worked with that manufacturer, that company, to reduce the amount of water that they have as a whole inside their factories, and really improving their environmental footprint. So that's what IoT effectively is. It's measuring devices, getting the data, getting the information out of devices, and then making sense of it through data science, for example, asking that data questions on how we can improve that facility, that process. And when we look at the partner, the ecosystem around an IoT scenario, when we look at that technology footprint on an IoT scenario, it's not just Microsoft that exists in that process. We need sensor providers, and they can be tiny. They can be tiny bits of hardware with communication capabilities, um, and they can be measuring humidity or moisture levels, for example, in a farming environment. So farmers now have little moisture um, sensors around their fields so that they can measure the health and quality of their crops. So that little sensor has to measure certain things like vibration in a turbine, moisture in the soil, dust, etc. And so we need hardware engineers to do that. Then it comes into then it needs a communication process to bring that into a Microsoft sphere in terms of the cloud. And so we need the capability of Microsoft engineers, software engineers, for example, to interpret that on behalf of the company. Equally, the company is looking at how they can understand the data as well. And then we need people to put all this together, because again, Microsoft doesn't screw in the sensors and attach mobile masts, for example, to get the data from the field, from the vessel, for example. So we need people to integrate this solution as well. So there's a number of different capabilities and partners and organizations that really have to come together to make this, to find a solution for this problem. And so when I look at the capabilities that I need, although I work for Microsoft, I am not technical. I'm in a sales role, and so I need to be I need to be able to organize people. I need to be able to influence people. I really need to problem solve and really understand what the problem of customers is. And so there's a lot of understanding and empathy and cultural understanding as well. Certainly, if we are working across geographies as well. And so all of these soft skills are really, really important in the job that I do. I'd like to move on very quickly, if I can, in terms of what it's like to work for Microsoft and the culture of organizations. And Microsoft, the reason why I've been here 12 years is that I really enjoy working at Microsoft. It's a really challenging environment and a really meaningful environment. And actually, culture of Microsoft is really, really important. And we talk about it regularly as an organization. And there are a few headlines in terms of what that culture means. We have a growth mindset. We work on trust. We really focus down on diversity and inclusion. And we spend our days internally within Microsoft talking about these issues. So from a growth mindset perspective, we have this concept of learn it all, not know it all. So we really walk into a customer environment asking as many questions and trying to understand the breadth and depth of the problems that they have. From a diversity and inclusion perspective, not only is Microsoft hiring a vast array of backgrounds, it's an active conversation within Microsoft, but it also allows you to approach a problem in a very, very open and honest way. And it allows you to really go and ask lots of different questions of lots of different people. And it also allows you a voice within Microsoft. And so it's not just about those who are confident with a loud voice and who are always speaking up. You're actively looking for those quieter people who have lots of ideas, but who might just want some time to articulate what they're thinking. And so that diversity and inclusion aspect of our culture is really important. And finally, I want to focus down on trust as well. Trust between ourselves, those people who work inside Microsoft, trust with our customers as well, people to people, but it's also in the products that we build. If, as you can see, that more and more of society will be driven by connectivity and by technology, People need to be able to trust in the technology that is driving that. Will it keep them safe and secure? Will it keep them accessible? Will it be actually in my interests? Going back to that diversity and inclusion, the products that our customers and our partners build on top of Microsoft technology, is it inclusive of everyone? Um, which means that you need a large, diverse body of people in order to build those solutions. And so there's lots of conversations inside Microsoft in terms of how do we make our technology as open and as inclusive as possible, and how do we build that technology to help our customers as much as possible.